All right, one last look at your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center. For your ride in on this Friday, a couple accidents to report. One at Bluff Road near Olympia Avenue. Another one at I-20 westbound at White Pond Road. That's exit number 87. Another one at Old Orangeburg Road at Edmond Highway. And then one more at Shop Road and Atlas Road. Guess what? It's going to be hot again today. High is 96. Tomorrow, hot as well. High of 100 on Saturday and Sunday with a heat index of around 101.78 right now in downtown Columbia here on the early game. Nine o'clock on your Friday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Veltri off for the day, heading up to New York for the weekend.
Ooh.
One last little vacation before the season starts. That is our guy Joe Machika, though, hanging out for an extended period of time this morning. Joe, how we doing?
Doing awesome, Tyler. Happy to be filling in for Jack today. Hope the trip up to New York. New York is all good, but yeah, a little extended. You guys give me a little earlier this morning from 9 to I think we're doing 10:15ish.
Yeah. You said you got other things going on. You got to bounce, which I get.
Right. Yeah. So, but no, excited to be here a little bit earlier, and yeah, in the mix, back in studio again. It's been fun. Saw Elijah and Preston on the way out. Good to see those guys too. So yeah, we're here. We're ready to go.
Steven on our live stream has challenged us. He says, let's see if you guys can bring the heat like the early game did. So we are being presented a challenge early this morning to bring the same intensity and passion that Elijah and Preston did for the past 3 hours.
I'm with it. I think it's the energy has stayed in the studio. So shout out to Preston and Elijah for I guess leaving some of the energy or whatnot. But and did catch some of them on my way, and they were great this morning talking to Phil Steele of all people, which is awesome. Like that's an awesome interview, and getting the book is such a special thing every year. So it's awesome that they get to chat with him.
I emailed Phil Steele myself a couple weeks back to try and get him on, but I'm sure he's getting 10 billion emails a day to appear on these shows. And Jen told me she has a little bit of an inside track into him, so that's how they landed him, because I was like, dang, he didn't even email me back.
Right.
But yeah, he's a busy guy, and I love getting the magazine. I will say this year, for some reason, and maybe I'm just navigating the website wrong, it won't let me download the PDF like a year ago. So you have to go to the website to navigate it every single time, which it's fine. It's just an extra step.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm dumb and just not downloading it correctly or something along those lines, but that is one change I've noticed from a year ago at least.
Yeah, I'm personally, like Preston kind of mentioned it, there is something about having, the physical copy of it. There's everyone's reading everything on their phones nowadays. It's all blue light. It's all, whatever. So having the physical copy, and growing up, it was the same way. It was always, the physical copy, and then you had it, not to say that you were buying other preseason books, but it was Phil Steele and whatever else was out, and you just thumbing through it, seeing who was going to be good.
And in years past, I have been very much like a physical copy kind of person. I went to Barnes & Noble 2 years ago to buy the physical copy. And there was something exciting about, like when the college football video game came back out, I'm like, I don't want to download the digital version. I want to go to the store and buy it and have that excitement driving home, knowing I'm about to put this thing in the system and play it. And the Phil Steele thing is kind of the same way. But when doing this, and we're talking about a team and I need to look something up really quickly, it is, at least in last year's version of the PDF, where it was easier. I could just punch in a name, punch in a page number. It took me there immediately. So next year I might have to go back to the physical copy if I have to keep going back to the website to do it.
Yeah, I wish I had the fundage every year to go buy the physical copy. I look forward to the excitement every year, and then maybe, when I do stop by a Barnes & Noble, taking the 5-10 minutes and thumbing through it real quick and getting my little free preview, if you will. But yeah, exciting stuff. Excited to be here, Tyler, as always.
Well, Steven, we'll try and bring the heat, and I can't think of a better way to start things off than with our normal 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm, sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick Me Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803 all nines. A little over a month away until we'll actually start hearing Sandstorm in person once again inside Williams-Brice Stadium. I guess if we're 37 days away from the Virginia Tech game, that means we're 43 days away from the first home game against South Carolina State that following Saturday.
Yeah, the Vatech game being on the Sunday, we've talked about this when this got scheduled. Obviously, it stinks because it leaves you, an extra day. The rest of the college football world will be kicking off on Saturday, and you got to wait one more day for your team to play, but it's also kind of nice. You get to absorb the whole slate without, having, the emotions of your team play as well. Whether it be, good emotions, bad emotions, depending on how the game goes. But yeah, you're oh so close. And Tyler, it's talking season's almost over. We're almost at camp and ready to have some real takeaways.
We're still in the midst of talking season as of right now. A lot of things to talk about. And I don't know if you caught any of the show yesterday, but I went down the path of pessimistic takes, right? We've spent so much this offseason, rightfully so, hyping this team up. 9-3 in the regular season a year ago, cusp of the college football playoff. You got Sellers returning as a Heisman favorite. You got Dylan Stewart on the other side. A lot of reasons to be excited, and we've spent most of the year with that positive spin on it. But there's always that other side. And let's be honest, this is a Gamecock fan base that's been traumatized plenty of times in the past by being excited about, and not just football, other sports too, being excited about something going into a season and then it falling off of a cliff and it being a disaster. I mean, 2 years ago, we thought, hey, coming off of an 8-win season, you got Rattler coming back, all this momentum, and you went 5-7, missed a bowl game. So, and I'm not sure, I wasn't trying to speak things into existence, but we got a lot of interaction yesterday from people of what things could go wrong this upcoming season. Very valid concerns. Obviously, injuries are a very easy thing to point to, but offensive line play, defense not being very good, guys that, we think are going to step into these roles left behind by the guys in the NFL now that don't end up living up to the billing. A lot of things, special teams as well. A lot of things have the potential to go wrong in this upcoming season, and we explored all that yesterday. But I want to take it back into the positive today because we're going to go optimism. We're gonna put on the rose-colored glasses and say what great things could happen this upcoming season as a way to balance things out, the yin and the yang, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Tyler, on the walkthrough, I've got a segment called the Optimism Glasses, or had a segment.
Those,
Yes, the Optimism Glasses, where you put on the shades and everything seems all fine and dandy, and you don't really get to think about negativity. I think there's so much optimism to be had for this South Carolina football team this year. I mean, you've got Lenore Sellers in the Heisman talk. You've got Nick Harbor in this wide receiver room coming back. Mike Furry developing these guys. You saw, flashes out of so many young guys in this wide receiver room, and then, you have another year to develop, and with that, your defensive line is making headway. I mean, everybody in the SEC and everybody that you played last year is talking about the South Carolina defensive line, and just I don't want to play them again. It's the real deal. So there's a lot to be optimistic about, Tyler. And again, just scratching the surface there with Lenoris and the Heisman campaign and a lot of defensive line and everything. And so but there's plenty to like here.
And when I throw this out there, and we certainly want your interaction as well on the Firehouse Subs text line, as well as the AAA Heating and Air phone lines at 803-404-6100. When it comes to optimism, if you want to go the route of, hey, they're going to go undefeated, win the national championship, and Sellers is going to win the Heisman Trophy, that's fine. But I want to kind of ground this in realism a little bit, because that would be phenomenal. But also, that's very, very hard to do, something that South Carolina has never done. I kind of put it in the realm of, okay, realistic, optimistic takes. What could you actually really see happening this year? And it doesn't have to just be the record. It doesn't just have to be Sellers winning the Heisman. Individual performances. Do you think that Nick Harbor can get over 600 yards, receiving this year? That would be really, really good. Him and Mazio Ben, if those two guys can combine for over 1,000, you're on the right track there. With the wide receiver, can J.R. Johnson lead the team in tackles or something along like those kind of optimistic takes that when you piece things together would result in a strong football season.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think, talking about areas that, that could be improved or areas that are of question that, optimistic take in his linebacker. You brought up Fred J.R. Johnson. Kid is a athletic freak, like a stud. But he's in a room that, again, limited as much as the linebacker room is. They've had to do some work in the portal. So big expectations for Fred or for J.R. And so, it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. But, I mean, Tyler, full optimistic take here is I think you maybe lose 1 to 2 games. I think for South Carolina, full optimism. I don't think you go undefeated, but I also don't think you win 4 games, even though I've heard both sides of the coin there.
Sure.
I think you continue on momentum, right? Or you like the goal here is to continue upon momentum from last year. Last year, you broke onto the scene as, the fun team with the quarterback, who's really, 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 really talented. You've got a fun coach. And, a really good atmosphere at home at Williams-Brice, which makes the recipe for, a fun SEC team. So I think this year you want to continue momentum, at least. You want to continue into the national, talking space and, can't necessarily afford to take a step back.
And I don't think anybody's going undefeated in the SEC this year. Not Texas, not Georgia, not Alabama, not LSU. I think everybody's going to trip up inevitably at some point, possibly twice. And I think Carolina's right in there as well. And again, you look at how daunting this schedule is. You got to go to LSU. Clemson comes into town at the end of the season. You've got that stretch of games between LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Ole Miss. Like, going undefeated through that would be great, but I don't see it happening. I think you're going to trip up at some point there in the middle. But the fortunate thing about today's world of college football, you can lose 2, maybe even 3 games, depending on which games you lose and when you lose them, and still be in good shape to make the college ball playoff. I think that is the ultimate optimism for everybody here is like, if you can make the playoff, however you get there, whether it be undefeated, 2 losses, 3 losses, that would be, again, the greatest season in Gamecock history because you've never been that far before. You've never been in the championship race in the postseason to go pursue a national championship.
Yeah, and I think, Tyler, one of the big reasons why there's so much energy and there's so much belief here is you look at last season and everything you've been able to accomplish, and, you were a couple plays away from 2 losses, right?
Yep.
You were really a couple plays away from having 2 losses and being in that playoff. So I think, the optimism is certainly running high here in Columbia, especially since not a whole lot has changed either. Like, you look at this roster, not a whole lot of turnover. Obviously, you mentioned the defensive line or the D tackles or more or less and the linebackers, sure. But, like, if you look at the core of this team, I mean, the quarterback's still there. The wide receivers are still there. You've got some offensive line things that you're dealing with. But, again, you were able to get those guys in here for spring and start to establish something. So a lot of your core is still there. And a lot of what makes this football team, go or at least, fun and have momentum is still here. So I think there's a lot of belief, and as there should be, right? You're 1 or 2 plays away from being in that playoff.
Absolutely. So, again, we're talking optimistic takes this morning. Let us know yours, 803-404-6100 on the Firehouse Subs text line, as well as the Love Chevrolet phone line. Also going to get to some things happening around the country with ACC and Big Ten Media Days as well. All that coming up as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head and Joe Machika filling in for Jack Feltry on your Friday here on The Game. Tyler Ed here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. I tell you about it all the time, but I'll happily remind you once again, you always need to be on the lookout for things around your home that are a little bit odd. Things like cracks in your exterior brick, cracks in walls or above windows and door frames, doors or windows that might be sticking, uneven or bouncy floors, or cracks over your garage door. If you have any of these problems with your home, you could have serious foundation issues. That's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com. They will come out to your home and evaluate your foundation issues and give you what you need to get it fixed and make sure you and your family live without worry going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfixit.com for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Joe Machika hanging out with you on your Friday here on the game. Always love a little Metallica.
Yeah, I think it's perfect for the segment that we're leading into.
Yeah.
Like it gives us the juice going into this one for sure.
Question of the day is your optimistic takes, though, for the South Carolina football season. Yesterday we explored pessimism and got a lot of interaction on that from a fan base that, let's face it, has had its heart broken plenty of times before when excitement levels were high going into a season. But we're exploring optimism and what could go right this upcoming season. And we'll head out to the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Dalton wants to weigh in. Dalton, appreciate your call. What's on your mind this morning?
Appreciate it, y'all. How y'all doing today?
Doing great.
Doing good.
I was wondering how y'all think Carolina's going to do this season, especially with them going up against Clemson. You think y'all think that they're going to perform pretty well for this season, and we beat Clemson this year?
Appreciate the call there. Again, 803-404-6100. And look, that Clemson game is never going to be easy. I like the fact that you have that game at home, though. for the past handful of years. Obviously, you've done a pretty good job winning that game up at Clemson, so you got to kind of start getting your licks back here at home. But man, if there's one game out of all of them, again, the rivalry makes it important anyway, but like the true toughest challenge of the entire year, I think is going to be that game in the last week of the regular season.
Yeah, I agree, Tyler. It's the toughest game on the schedule. Considering how, stacked, I guess, the team in Orange is, Dabo has somehow, not somehow found a way. He's found a way to, put together a pretty productive roster up there. And I think, you're kind of just waiting for Dabo or Shane to beat one another, like, at their home field. Like, for some reason, it flips back and forth and back and forth. And for some, like this year, it looks like, on paper, Clemson has the edge. Now, again, I think this South Carolina team is better than it has been in years past, or better than teams have been that have welcomed Clemson back into Williams-Brice.
Sure.
In the Shane Beamer era, which should give you some hope. But I don't know. I think both teams are loaded coming down to it. It's going to be a toss-up like it always is.
And you said it right there. As of right now, you would say Clemson has the advantage based on what we know about them right now. But I think you could have made the same argument a year ago in the summertime too. Like, hey, for 2024, in late July, who do you think is going to win the Clemson-South Carolina game? You would have said, I know more about what this Clemson team is, and I'm going to lean more towards them at this point in time. And Carolina obviously got better as the season went along and obviously ended up winning that game. So right now, we just know a lot more about Clemson.
Yeah.
Look, Cade Klubnik likes. Lenore Sellers is thought of as one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I've seen him projected as a number one pick, depending on different mock drafts that you look at. He has got perhaps the best core of receivers coming back this year with Antonio Williams, Bryant Wesco, and TJ Moore, and that is going to be a very tough unit to stop. The South Carolina DBs are going to have their work cut out for them. You got returners pretty much all over this entire team. They have the best returning production in the entire country. Yeah. Like, this very much reminds me of those Clemson teams that won the national championship. When you looked at what they had coming back, the talent they had coming back, the recruiting class they put together, like, this team reminds me of that. And it's so funny the difference a year can make, because a year ago, Clemson went into the season starting against Georgia. They got shellacked by 31 points in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and we were piling on Dabo like, hey man, this is what happens when you don't adapt. You're not you're not using the transfer portal. You're relying just on high school recruiting. You're going to fall behind. And credit where it's due, a year later, we're looking at this as one of the best rosters in college football.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Dabo's done Dabo, really, in his way of rebuilding this roster. I will say this, their schedule isn't the most hard thing in the world. Like, it's not the toughest schedule in the world. So if you see them struggling, like, maybe they weren't as good as they were billed to be. And I think, that's South Carolina's advantage is that by the time that they get to that game, they are going to be battle tested. They're going, like, as is every year. And I think last year was a great example of it. Third and 26. The team was ready to go. Like, South Carolina was like, all right, like, we've been in this situation before. We've been in a tough environment before. And there's nothing really that can prepare you for that like the SEC can. So I think, going into that game, always a toss-up, like I said. But on paper right now, Clemson has the advantage. But, again, they beat themselves, too, a lot as the year kind of rolls on. So, on paper, sure, it might look good now, but just wait a couple weeks and we'll see.
And they have some tricky Tech challenges on their schedule this year. They go to Tech early in the season. Obviously, LSU in week number 1 is not going to be easy. They go to North Carolina in October. We'll see what
Bill Belichick,
Chapel Bill has there by that point in time. But I fully expect this to be a Clemson team probably well inside the top 10, if not the top 5, when that matchup rolls around. And let's be honest, this could be setting the table. Last year's game, I think, from a stake standpoint, was the most significant game in the history of the rivalry, given that both teams were fighting for their playoff lives. Obviously, Clemson ends up still getting in anyway because, Miami loses to Syracuse and Clemson wins the ACC championship. But we went into that game knowing that, hey, losers' chances of making the playoffs are severely hit in this game. And Clemson, their only way in was to win that ACC championship. They had no more margin for error because of that loss to South Carolina. So I think you're looking at Clemson. I feel like it's going to hold up their end of the deal. You hope South Carolina can do the same thing where we're talking about a top 10-ish matchup where, again, playoff stakes are on the line. Yeah,
and I mean, looking at the South Carolina schedule, there's enough toss-ups to where if Clemson is one of your 2 losses, I still think you get in. Like,
absolutely.
And maybe there's the argument from the committee made like that, you didn't take care of your business at the end of the year or something like that. Any other reason to find a way to keep South Carolina out of it. But yeah,
if South Carolina is 10-2 and neither one of those losses is against South Carolina State and Coastal Carolina,
right,
you're good. Like you're in.
You should,
I have no doubt
agree.
about that.
Based on just how stacked your schedule is, and 2 losses again, like we were saying earlier, it's kind of where you want to be, and based on the caliber of this South Carolina schedule, you should be fine with the 2 losses. But yeah, this Clemson game, always a toss-up. I don't know. I think the South Carolina team, and he asked about, I guess, the whole year too. I think the South Carolina team is going to be just fine, right? I think we're going to see some lapses. There's going to be some toss-ups, but I also think we're going to see some crazy things out of that Sellers kid that are going to make you like double check your glasses, even though you're not wearing them, kind of thing. Sure. It's like, did I just see that? And that's going to be exciting.
And again, we're going optimism today, so I'm going to lean on what we saw last year, where, again, going into the year, we didn't think South Carolina was going to be as good as they were.
Right.
We didn't think that team, we were hoping for a bowl game. Right? It's like, okay, can you get to 6 wins and get yourself playing somewhere in the month of December? We never foresaw them going out there and being in the mix for the playoff up until the last weekend of the regular season. So this coaching staff has proven several times already that they can surprise you. So and it's not that we're down on them, but we're just unsure about a lot of areas because you're replacing a ton of talent from a season ago. But this is where you have to put your faith in Beamer and his assistants for not only the recruiting of these guys out of high school as well as the transfer portal, but the development as well. Because, again, there's a lot of guys that just haven't proven themselves at the college level just yet, coming from various places where they weren't featured players. This is where you have to say, okay, I've seen what you've done with other guys. Can you do that with these same guys to where you're playing that same level of high-brand football that you did a year ago?
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at where South Carolina's at. I mean, we talked about this, I think it was last week or a couple weeks ago, just where you're at from a national perspective. Nobody's talking about you, right? So all of the work and all of the, I guess, respect to be earned traditionally is to be left on the field. Like, for South, like that's always how it's been for South Carolina.
Yeah, but again, you also have to, and again, we're talking about the Clemson game because, Dalton's the one that asked about it, but you have to also give respect to what's happening on the other side. And again, that is a scary roster. Now, what Clemson looks like in 26 and beyond, I don't know. But, again, Dabo, through the philosophy of high school recruiting, and they finally dipped their toes into the transfer portal this offseason, so you give them a little bit of credit for that. But they've got a roster that's tailor-made to be one of the best teams in college football that you're going to have to deal with in your own venue, again, trying to finally get that lick back at home coming up at the end of November.
Yeah, and to be honest, like, Clemson South Carolina games at home haven't really been pretty either. Like, there's yet to be a William, like, and granted the score's been closer, but like first time they played a blowout.
And last time they couldn't score on offense.
So it just, feels like a weird game every time Clemson comes to Williams-Brice. So if you can, like, even like if you like lose this game by a couple points, shake the weirdness off of playing Clemson at Williams-Brice under the Shane Beamer era, because for some reason, like, every time they come in, it's the boogeyman.
So to answer the question, I have faith that South Carolina can win that game.
Yeah.
But I am going to need to see a lot of things between now and when that game rolls around to bolster that faith.
Yeah, Tyler, I'm going to agree with you there. I think, simply just based on how it's been these last couple of years and the way that this rivalry has gone, and I think it is going to continue where these two keep beating each other at their home venues and keep kind of spoiling the end of the season for each other. But yeah, Shane and Dabo, man, it's like Batman and Joker. It's becoming a tale as old as time. So, I think, Clemson might have the edge, but then again, this is July, so we really don't know what either football team is really made out of yet.
I appreciate Ian on the live chat, who is a resident Clemson fan that always tries to keep us in check each and every day.
Yeah.
He said, not going to lie, Sandstorm is kind of lit there. I can be objective. So we're feeling optimistic today, and even Ian, the resident Clemson fan, can say that he even likes Sandstorm.
Optimistic and objective today, Tyler. We love it. Bringing the heat for sure.
Yeah, so that's going to be a fun game coming up in November. Again, a lot of football to be played between now and then, but as it is every single year, and I think even more this year, you circle how important that game has the potential to be. Again, I think Clemson's going to have no problem holding up their end of the deal. You just got to hope that South Carolina, like last year, can hold up theirs.
Yeah, find a way to break the cycle, because again, it's kind of like a boogeyman-ish cycle. Like you gotta find a way to break the karma, break the bad juju that's surrounding that game, and having the team in orange come down here.
So again, let us know your optimistic takes, 803-404-6100. Firehouse Subs text line, as well as the AAA heating and air phone lines. Also want to get into, coming up next, what's going on out of the Big Ten, because, oh boy, they're talking. They're poking the bear. How's this going to go? We'll discuss coming up next. It is The Extra Point. It's our head and Joe Machiko with you on your Friday here on The Game. Tyler Ed here once again, telling you about our friends over at Twin Peaks. Always excited to tell you what's going on with our friends right down the street in the Vista, and I'm happy to announce that the Bikini Bash costume party is returning next week, July 27th through the 31st. You can cool off with your favorite Twin Peaks girls all week and celebrate with specials on your favorite shots, cans, cocktails, and martinis. And, of course, we still got sports going on. You got baseball, you've got the WNBA, you've got Summer League basketball is over, unfortunately, but football's right around the corner, and you can take in all the great sports action no matter what your preference is, with TVs as far as the eye can see, tons and tons of delicious food, and don't forget about those 29-degree draft beers. All that and more with our friends at Twin Peaks right down the street in the Vista. Welcome back in. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head, Joe Machika hanging out with me on this Friday here on The Game. Again, we're in the midst of talking season. We're in the midst of Media Day season, though I guess with yesterday, that was kind of the end of Media Day season as all 4 power conferences are now in the books. And, last week at SEC Media Days down in Atlanta, the same usual topics came up when it came to formats and 9-game scheduling and all that kind of stuff. And, every coach was asked about it and every coach spoke about it. But I noticed something different this week when I was watching Big Ten Media Days, hearing from all the coaches. It seemed like there was almost this memo sent out to Big Ten coaches like, hey, take as many shots at the SEC as you can, or, the other conference as you can over the course of this week, because I feel like every single one of them, to some degree, tried to do that.
Yeah, most definitely, Tyler. And meanwhile, the SEC we're sitting at media days like, yep, we're good. Like, we know we're playing good enough football to get every team in that we need and everything like that. And I don't know, man. When the commissioner's tweeting out the joke, like last night I sent you the tweet from Greg Sankey, that other conference.
Yep.
Like, I think we there has been a little some beef in the water or some chums stirred up between these two conferences, and I think the SEC is sitting here in prime position. We didn't pick this fight. We ought to I think they automatically think they're better than the Big Ten. So why is this even a battle or a fight? And the Big Ten's just kind of sounding off, just little brother syndrome almost.
And it's so interesting because I feel like for the past handful of years, let's go back to COVID, right? Where the Big Ten tried to postpone their season to the spring of 2021, thinking that everybody would fall in line behind them. And the SEC is like, oh, wait a minute, we still got some time, because that was like in June or July when they tried to do that. And the SEC is like, wait a minute, let's pump the brakes. We got some time on this. Let's not jump to conclusions. The Big Ten, that was under the prior commissioner, and the Big Ten tried to form the alliance and all that kind of stuff. All this stuff where they were very much seemingly fighting against the SEC. And then Tony Petitti comes in and he's like, hey, we're the 2 top dogs in this game. What if we work together? Which they've been doing pretty well the past couple years. And obviously, we've always had this thought that they could eventually break off and do their own thing because they're the top 2 dogs in college football. But it seems like this college football playoff format is what's starting to drive a stake between them again, to where the Big Ten, as it's been said many times this week by Tony Petitti, as well as their coaches, want this multi-automatic qualifier system, which is the 4-4-2-2-1. I know it's a lot of numbers. Keep up. Yeah. And the SEC is now, who originally was kind of on board with that, but now is going towards the 5-11 model. I've brought it up. It's like when mom and dad are arguing about something, and they're on either side, and you're like, well, I don't know who's going to win here, because they both have a lot of power in this situation, but I don't know which argument's going to come out as the winner. Yeah,
Tyler, the thing that the Big Ten has working for them is that they're second to the SEC, essentially. Like, it's them, the SEC, or it's the SEC, them, and then about, the Moneyball reference. There's about 50 feet of fill in the blank. And so, it's... I don't know. I think the whole arguing for automatic bids in the playoff is ridiculous. It's just something for them to gripe about, and maybe they're trying to get some importance. And I don't know. The Big Ten starting a beef with the SEC is something I didn't expect, because it's a battle that they'll seemingly lose. It's been the football conference, and it's been and somehow they're making the SEC seem look good. Everyone's been all the SEC gets all the favoritism and all that. But now with the Big Ten running their mouth, I feel like the nation's kind of shifting toward realizing this is probably the premier football conference in America.
And look, give them credit. They've won the past 2 national championships. That's not something that you can deny. And in both instances, the SEC was not even in the national championship game. Washington got beat by Michigan 2 years ago, and Notre Dame got beat by Ohio State this past year. So this is rarefied air for the SEC to not even be involved in the biggest game of the year the past 2 seasons. And I think, the SEC is not going to fall off a cliff all of a sudden, but to prove that, hey, we're not in a drought, I think you do need to get yourself back to the national championship game this upcoming year. And the SEC certainly has plenty of teams capable of doing that. But again, here's the thing. The Big Ten makes a lot of money too. In fact, I think by their TV rights deal, they make more money than the SEC, but both of those conferences are well above the ACC and the Big 12. And, I don't know, because again, when it looked like both of them agreed on the multi-AQ format. It's like, okay, well, that's definitely going to happen. If that's what they want, they have most of the power. It's only a matter of time. But now that the SEC is on the other side, I really don't know how this gets resolved.
Yeah, I don't know either, Tyler, again, simply because of how much power the Big Ten still has. But, I think the SEC and Sankey kind of being on the other side, like, hey, like, look, we'll take the guaranteed spots of the two, conferences or whatever, but, like, we don't necessarily need extra spots for us. Like, the football will play itself into it is kind of the safe space to be in, and probably the right one for Greg Sankey in the SEC. Again, as much as your conference has kind of, or the bottom is getting deeper in terms of teams, like, you still have all these toss-up games on the schedule, and you have, such a competitive league to where, somebody's going to break through and somebody's going to break through and get to the top there.
Formatting for the postseason in college football is one of my favorite topics.
Right.
Last night, I didn't get a chance to finish it because I had to go to bed, but I stumbled across an hour-long video on YouTube about the history of the BCS, and I'm going to watch it over the course of this weekend because I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And we've been I don't know if fortunate's the right word. We have lived through several eras of college football just in the past handful of years. The BCS only went away 12 years ago. We've had the 14 playoff for 10 years. Now we're in the 12-team playoff format and eventually likely going to go to 16 starting next year. What's your favorite? Like, out of all the formats you've seen in your life, do you have a preference on which one you think was best?
Yeah, it's pretty. I guess I'm biased here, and I'm gonna take this new playoff. And now I don't if you expand it. I think you expand it to where you give the first 4 byes a home game. I don't know. I like being biased on this take because I went to the first college football playoff game. Notre Dame in Indiana was able to
first one on a home campus,
right?
Home site.
Exactly. And blessed that the family, was able to get some tickets to the ticket lottery and all that stuff. Safe to say I wasn't in the priority, but got to go anyways, being from South Bend and all that. You guys, everybody knows this. But anyways, that game was incredible. Seeing it at the campus site, unbelievable. I got in the car and my father, went to Notre Dame, been there, done that, seen a bunch of games in that stadium. It was I don't think I've ever seen that stadium stand for an entire game. An entire game, Tyler, standing throughout halftime, just kind of talking to people. You really didn't sit down. It's up, down, up, down. But yeah, it's so, I don't know, I'm biased. This college football playoff and the campus sites, awesome. Never get rid of it. No, don't touch it. Don't get rid of it. It's awesome. It needs to be here to stay.
I enjoy the fact of the 12-team playoff that you have obviously more games, and it encapsulates it a full month. So we start with the first weekend before Christmas, and you have your quarterfinals on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and semifinals after that, national championship. So it's more postseason content to take in, which I do like about it a lot. And I don't know, maybe it's the nostalgia. Because the BCS era was what I grew up on as a kid, and you can still go back and play the old college football video games and experience the BCS, which I experienced one year playing a dynasty mode of the Alabama effect, where I didn't play in the SEC championship game but still made the national championship because 1 and 2. I think Alabama beat Florida in the SEC championship game, and I vaulted in to the national championship. So there was a lot of quirkiness to it, and it was so the BCS was the perfect encapsulation of how beautifully broken college football is. This format was ridiculous with computers and polls and all this kind of stuff, but it's what gave it charm. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And there was no denying the regular season mattered more than it ever has when you only had 2 teams eligible for that national championship.
True.
Based on the computer algorithm. Again, it wasn't perfect by any means, and I do enjoy the fact that we have more games today, but there was certainly controversy back then too, but I don't feel like as much as there is now because you just have so many more teams involved.
Yeah, I would agree. And the thing with the BCS is, you had all these really, 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 really good teams at the top that you're kind of trying to choose from. Now, I guess with the playoff, you're choosing between 3-4 loss team, just kind of 2-3, still equally as good.
You're choosing between more flawed teams.
Right.
All right, you have 3 losses or you have 4 losses. What are those losses? How bad are they? It's a difference between saying, okay, you've got 3 teams that went 12-1.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a little bit easier to decipher. Or hey, Boise State's undefeated, but they played in the Mountain West or the WAC. So sorry, you're not getting in the championship game.
Yeah, no, it's tough. It's unbelievable. And yeah, the BCS, I mean, those rankings would come out it was must-watch TV during the season. Like, if your team was good, you are watching the BCS rankings on Tuesday, tied into some college basketball game.
I feel like a lot of people have a I remember where I was moment when Alabama got put in the championship game with LSU. You remember Kirk Herbstreit walked off the set?
I don't.
He couldn't actually believe that it happened because it was the rumor oh my God, they're going to put 2 SEC teams in the national championship. They can't do it. There's no way that can happen.
This was
2011.
Okay,
by the way,
yeah.
If Oklahoma State hadn't lost to, I think it was Iowa State in the last weekend of the season, they would have been in themselves.
Right.
So they did it to themselves. But that was the controversy. Oh my God, they put 2 SEC teams in. This can't happen. This can't happen. And that started the ball rolling of what obviously ended up being the 14 playoff.
Yeah, and now, I mean, evolving into the 12-team
playoff,
it's
16, however far we're going to go with this.
I don't care how far it goes as long as you keep the home playoff game.
And I'm an advocate for more playoff games at home. Let's go first couple
I don't know
rounds.
about let's not water it down either, because if you've got a couple rounds at home, I kind of like the whole you get one chance to see them at home during the playoffs. That's it.
I would like to see the higher seeds at least get a home game.
True.
As opposed to just
I
waiting
agree.
for a bowl. So
I agree.
There's a lot that can happen to this, but man, it is crazy how many different eras we live to in just a few handful of years.
Unbelievable, Tyler. The college football world changes.
Well, if you were in trouble, what SEC coach would you call to help you out? They were posed this question last week at Media Days. We're going to dive into that coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Joe Machika on your Friday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. It's our Ed and Joe Machika with you on your Friday here on the game. If you were in trouble, what SEC coach would you call to help you out? And the coaches at the SEC Media Days last week were asked that exact question, and here's how they responded.
Emergency contact if something happened to me?
It'd be Kirby. He's been the gold standard.
Oh, Lane Kiffin.
Why is that?
Because he'll never answer. No, it would be Lane because if I call, it's definitely an emergency.
Got to be Mike Elko, because we have a friendship, so I know he's got my back.
Eli Drinkwitz. He's a loyal friend. Or Kirby. Kirby's closer. Probably Kirby then. He's closer to me. He'd get there faster.
I guess Lane, because he'll always get the text. He's on his phone 24/7.
I wouldn't pick me. I don't even answer my phone most of the time. Kirby or Drink.
Kirby Smart. Trust him.
The one I've known the longest is probably Drink. I'm going to go with Kirby because I think Kirby knows everybody.
So by final count here, Kirby Smart wins with 5 votes. Drinkwitz got 3. Kiffin got 2, and Elko got 1. Surprised at all by these results?
Yeah, very. Those not my picks at all. I would have picked Lane Kiffin if it comes with Lane Kiffin's only good as an emergency contact if you've known him since kindergarten, right? Somebody sure. He is willing to be like, all right, yeah, I got you. Because I feel like in that situation he will drop everything and actually answer his phone. But yeah, not necessarily my 2 takes if we're taking this kind of realistically or seriously.
Yeah, I feel like Lane would always be like, well, what's in it for me? Definitely like, I'm gonna help you, but how are you gonna help me? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and there's certainly gonna be a favor owed later on. Lane's gonna be driving you home from the hospital and be like, oh dude, I got so much stuff I gotta do next week. You can help me with. I gotta move this. I gotta move. I can't wait till you're back up. There's so much stuff you can help me with.
He might hold that over your head.
Right.
When he's like, hey, I need some help moving this thing or whatever. Yeah. Remember I did that thing for you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I could see that.
That will be Lane Kiffin for sure. But I don't know. I think. Shane's the easy take. You get a guy that'll do anything for your player, anything for his players, right? Guy that's willing to go after a bigger man in Brett Bielema, right? Yeah. So, I think that's the easy take, sure, and because he's in our backyard too, sure. But
I feel like Shane, out of all the coaches in the SEC, would get to you the fastest.
Right.
Hey, I'm whatever's happening, I need some help here, and boom, 5 minutes later he's there, and you're like, how'd you get here so fast? He's like, well, I was down the street and I drove a little bit faster than I should have, but I got here. I feel like he's that kind of guy.
Yeah, I agree. And is gonna see it through too. If you're at the hospital for a couple days, he's gonna be in the waiting room with your mom, trying to calm her down and everything. I get that kind of vibe from Shane. And then also, my sleeper pick was Clark Lee.
Okay.
Defensive coordinator in South Bend. So my mom was a preschool teacher, taught his kids, whatever. For everything I've heard about the Lees, great family.
Cool.
He's at Vanderbilt. I like how he is as a head coach. I've engaged with him a little bit in media, just press conferences and stuff. So Clark Lee, believer there too. But yeah, Shane Beamer, Clark Lee are probably my 2 emergency contacts, if you will. I think both reliable gentlemen. And then I did have an anti-pick for you, Tyler.
I was going to say, who's on the opposite end of the list?
Hugh Freeze, because he's probably lining up a putt. He's nowhere near his phone.
That's a good one.
He's definitely, or checking his yardage.
He may answer the phone, but he's like, I'm only on hole 8.
Right.
I still got a whole back 9 to play here.
Yeah, Hugh Freeze, you're not getting your phone. He's he's doing something else and probably happy he's doing so.
I'd also throw out there Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
Again, good football coach.
Right.
As a person, though, not the best.
No, and, which is nuts because, Pocky, his wife, was unbelievable in South Bend. Did a whole lot in South Bend. I grew up with Brian Kelly's kids, kind of, in conjunction with his kids, I guess, growing up in South Bend. But, yeah, Pocky Kelly, amazing human being.
Sure.
Would definitely be my emergency contact, but unfortunately this doesn't go.
Yeah. But we're not talking about wives.
No, and I would venture into this South Carolina staff a little bit. Sterling Luke, Travian Robertson would be a very quick emergency contact call. Really anybody in the D-line. I think, the secondary T grade be an easy call too. Well, those DBs go a long way.
I feel like Clayton White would be good.
Yeah. Clayton would drop a lot.
I feel like Clayton wouldn't ask questions.
Nope.
You call him, hey, I need your help. I'm at this place. And he's like, all right. And then he's just
not going to ask questions, but then probably going to laugh about it with you later if you do tell him. Like, waiting for you, like, not going to ask because he knows he's going to get a story. But I agree, Clayton White, going to help, going to be there. Like, yeah, there's a lot of people. And, again, that kind of goes to everything Shane's trying to do, too. But there's a lot of people on this coaching staff that, you know, are good people that I'd say would be an emergency contact for sure.
That's good. But, yeah, I'd put Kelly and Freeze probably at the bottom of my list in the SEC. And, like, I wouldn't want to have to call these guys if I didn't have to.
Yeah. Who'd you have?
At top of my list, I feel like Kalen DeBoer is an underrated one. He's a very, like, you know, seems like a nice guy, right? You know what I mean?
Very
football coach, obviously, but, like, I don't know. I feel like he'd help you out.
Yeah, he's got some of the Indiana from Kalen DeBoer is still in him. Like, I just very plain good Midwestern man.
What he's from South Dakota, right?
Yeah, something like that.
There's something called South Dakota nice because I got a buddy from there.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Kalen DeBoer embodies that.
Yeah, that's great. South Dakota nice. Who knew?
All right, hour number 1 of the books coming up in hour number 2. We'll dive back into what's been said this week at ACC and Big Ten Media Days. Talk about rivalries and ones that might be going away. We'll hit that coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Joe Machika here on your Friday on the Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 2. It's the Extra Point. It's our Ed, Joe Machiki hanging out for a couple more minutes here.
Oh, yeah.
Man, the music's been on fire this morning.
It's been awesome, Tyler. I've been loving the rock, and you're always good at giving us a good lead in. You know, I've had some rap these past couple weeks, getting ready for some segments.
I don't pick it. It just randomly generates. We have a log of a bunch of songs that myself, Wes, and Chris have all come up with, and Cult's Personality is one of mine. So
I'm with it.
Great start to the hour.
Yeah, I'm here for it, and we lost a lot of rock legends recently.
Man, what a week it's been, right?
It's been a crazy week.
You know, you obviously had Ozzy Osbourne pass on, was that Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever that was, and then Hulk Hogan yesterday.
The Hulkster, yes.
His name's escaping me, but the guy from the Cosby Show.
Oh yeah, I know who.
That was like over the weekend.
Yeah.
They do say it always comes in threes.
Right.
Malcolm Jamal Warner. That's his name. Played the son on the Cosby Show there. But yeah, and the Hulk Hogan thing yesterday was right about noon as I was going on for the halftime show, and it's almost kind of one of those things like you can't believe it, or like there's no way that happened, no way Hulk Hogan really died, and lo and behold, it was true.
Yeah, and I guess same goes for Oz, right?
Yeah,
the Prince of Darkness, you thought was immortal, and now granted,
his health had been rough,
right.
And if you seen the video of his final performance, from a couple weeks ago,
and I heard you guys talking about that earlier this week.
I've watched that like 20 times already. It's great.
No, it is awesome.
But again, he was battling Parkinson's. You could see he was in rough shape. And I think when you watch that, you kind of knew the end was near. You just didn't know how near it was, and unfortunately, it was only a couple weeks later.
Right. Yeah. No. Unfortunate. Weird week. Weird week for sure.
Absolutely. But RIP to all those legends in their own right. And yeah, it is weird how those things kind of tend to happen in groups of 3 for whatever reason. We're 37 days away from South Carolina kicking things off against Virginia Tech at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on August 31st. Virginia Tech in a little bit of a different place than the South Carolina program as of right now. Brent Pry, who is, let's be honest, on a pretty hot seat going into the season, talked yesterday at ACC Media Days about the challenge of not only playing South Carolina to start the year, but Vanderbilt as well.
Yeah, honestly, in general, we feel like we have something to prove, and that's been the mindset, since the end of the season. So, the opportunity to play South Carolina, to play Vanderbilt at night in Lane Stadium, again, that's why these guys come to Virginia Tech. That's why I wanted to be back. And the standards and the expectations are to beat those guys, to win those games, like Tech did for a bunch of years. And so it's challenging. South Carolina is a hell of a football team. They've recruited well. They got a ton of momentum. They got a dynamic edge guy. They got an ultra-talented quarterback. We got our hands full, but we're up for the challenge. And, we're working every day to be the best team that we can be, to go down there and play a good brand of football. Then, Vanderbilt, great respect for Clark Lee. I know Clark. He's done a tremendous job. I coached at Vanderbilt 3 years. I know the challenges in that place, and he's done a tremendous job. They'll bring a really good football team in here, and they got their own quarterback that's awful talented. So, but I like our group. I like our quarterback. I like our guys. I like the direction we're going. This team right now is the closest to the vision I have for Virginia Tech football, for what I want us to be and who I want us to be. We're closer than we've ever been.
And you have a team going into this game that I feel like is going to be very desperate, right? In his 3 seasons there, they're 16-21, went 6-7 a year ago and lost their bowl game, so not exactly trending in the right direction coming into the season. Now, one thing for them, they did lose a lot of one-score games last year, which is, one thing to say they were at least competitive in a lot of games that they did end up losing. But they really need to come in and make a statement to start the season. And again, South Carolina can't sleep on them, can't overlook a team like Virginia Tech that has the potential to be tricky.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It's a good way to open your season, right? Traditional, I guess, bluer blood or secondary blue blood in college football. You got the storyline with Shane's dad as well, coaching there and all that. You know, people will watch. Like there's attraction to the matchup there. I think it'll be a good stepping stone. Honestly, this Virginia Tech roster, it's not made up with a whole lot of talent, but again, it's a real Power 5 team.
Yeah.
You know, or P4 team. You know, so it's good to start your season off like that with a real challenge. And again, it'll be interesting to see how they handle Vanderbilt right after. You know, because Clark Lee, good football team, and we saw a record-breaking year last year out of Vanderbilt.
Yep.
I think the sky's the limit for them again this year. Like we're going to see another really good, talented Vanderbilt team. Now, again, not world beaters and competing for the SEC yet, but again, like just taking steps further, and it's all we've really seen in this Clark Lee era at Vandy. So yeah, it's going to be another tough one. 2 tough weeks for Vodtech to open it up.
You know, I go back to 2 seasons ago where South Carolina opened up against North Carolina. In that game, we quickly figured out, hey, this offensive line ain't good. Gave up 8 sacks to Spencer Rattler in that game. Are you pushing the panic button if something looks really bad against VT in week 1?
I think if really, really, really like glaring and like you go into Monday and be like, whoa, this one specific group or unit or one specific thing is really, really, really bad, then yeah, like you should probably get worried about it for the whole season. But again, I think like it's week 1. We know that you know that's kind of how the offensive line felt. And granted, it improved a lot in that the year after North Carolina, but it was so glaringly bad that it's like, oh, this might be a problem. So I think, as is everything, Tyler, if it's always one way or always like, you know, enough of one thing, like, yeah, it might be something to look. But I don't know. I think this Virginia Tech team, especially if you execute well for South Carolina, like you shouldn't really take a whole lot of, you know, long-term takeaways. Like you could show up, dominate this game and look like world beaters, and I don't necessarily think you can, you know, book your ticket to the college football playoff yet.
So Brent Pry obviously under a lot of pressure in Blacksburg in year number 4 at Virginia Tech. Well, another coach is under quite a bit of pressure, Lincoln Riley out in Southern Cal, who is quite frankly underperformed so far in his time there, especially considering the fact you had the Heisman Trophy quarterback a couple years ago and weren't able to get to the college football playoff. But one thing that's been surrounding the Southern Cal program here as of late is this conversation around the Notre Dame rivalry, one of the most historic rivalries in college football that might soon be going away. And yesterday, Lincoln Riley, taken to the podium at Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas, was asked about his take on the Notre Dame rivalry and if he would like to see it continue.
Do I want to play the game? Hell yeah, I want to play the game. Absolutely. It's one of the reasons I came here. All right. But also, my allegiance and my loyalty is not to Notre Dame and it's not to anybody else. I'm the head football coach at USC, and I'm going to back USC, and I'm going to do everything possible that I can in my power to make USC as good as it can, and not going to let anything stand in between that. So I'm very hopeful we can get to a point where it makes sense. It's one of those situations right now where the 2 schools are in radically different situations. I think we can all agree with that, with the one having a conference affiliation and one not. And I think it's I think there's a million reasons why that we should very seriously as a college football community that we should adopt the automatic qualifying in terms of the college football playoff. And this might be the most important one, right, is that we give every reason for college football to preserve non-conference games that mean a lot to the history of the game and to the fan bases and the former players and everybody that's been associated with it. So I'm very hopeful that we can get there, and I'm very hopeful that we play this game forever.
So my question here, is Lincoln Riley running away from this game, or is Lincoln Riley playing a smart strategy to benefit Southern Cal going forward?
I mean, you're going to get a little bit of bias here from me simply being from South Bend and going to this rivalry many a times as a kid. I think he's a little bit of both, right? I think, you know, Notre Dame, it's a trap game, and right now your program is not really on pace to be on the same level that Notre Dame or Marcus Freeman has elevated his program to, at least in the recent years or anything like that. So I think it's a little bit of both. You know, you're running from it, but at the same time, if you're going to get clobbered by Notre Dame every single season, like it's an automatic loss. Like, what do you do? Like, It doesn't make any sense if you're Southern Cal's perspective. But I don't know. It's a rivalry. Like yeah.
I go back to what Kurt Signetti said the other day, where he took his own shot at the SEC, saying, "Yeah, we dropped the game against UVA because and brought in less competition because we adopted an SEC scheduling model." But I also get what he's trying to do, because with the way the playoff is structured right now, where you're having to impress this committee of people, and last year was very much an indication that they deemed your overall record to be the most important thing. So if you're an 11-1 team in the Big Ten, no matter how good or bad your schedule was, you got the benefit of the doubt. So if I'm a team in the Big Ten, especially one like Southern Cal that knows I already have a challenging enough schedule within the conference anyway, I wouldn't want to risk playing a 10th game essentially against another high caliber team if I don't have to. So while I love the Notre Dame Southern Cal rivalry, I get why the powers of Southern Cal, and Lincoln really doesn't have control over this, right? Like, he's not the one making this call.
He's just got his voice.
But I can see how they're like, Lincoln, it would benefit us a lot if you didn't have to play this game every single year, because that gives us a better shot at the playoffs. I understand why he's kind of saying like, yeah, hey, I'm trying to do the best for the school itself as well.
Yeah, and I'm blaming the Big Ten for playing that extra conference game. I think the whole thing with the SEC, and part of it, and we might see it go away too, because the SEC might add that extra conference game. But part of the reason with the whole scheduling in South Carolina was worried about was like we've had conversations about the Palmetto Bowl going away, right? Because they're out of conference and all of that. So I think it's one of the unfortunate natures of these conferences getting so big and everything. And you gotta play the certain amount of games. And yes, Notre Dame could just easily join the Big Ten and that rivalry stays and whatever. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
See, the whole threatening rivalries by extending conference games is so silly to me,
right?
Because it's like, well, there's nothing stopping you from doing it, right? Like when Oklahoma joined the SEC, and basically them and Oklahoma State were pointing fingers at each other, like, well, they don't want to play it. Well, they don't want to play it. All you got to do is just say, hey, we each have a slot on the schedule where we can play an extra non-conference game. Let's play each other. It's not that hard, but neither side seems to want to do it. And I feel like if you went to a 9th conference game in the SEC, your justification would be, well, you're already playing an extra game. Why would you risk playing a Power 4 opponent and risking another loss when you don't have to, because your resume in the SEC is strong enough? So that to me is such a silly argument of like, well, we might lose the Palmetto Bowl, we might lose, Georgia Tech or Florida and Florida State or whatever. It's because you don't have to. It doesn't have to happen.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't have to happen. And yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I think the rivalries and just the higher ups and I mean Cignetti. You brought up Cignetti at IU. I mean the schedules these next couple of years it's almost laughable, right? Like when they get down to it, like. And yes, the regular season doesn't matter as much because, with the BCS, or we brought that up earlier too, But, I don't know. I think, you kind of have to find a balance of games you can win and games you're going to win, because if you look at IU's schedule when it comes down to it, if they're sitting at 1 or 2 losses to really good Big Ten schools, but then, had played a couple close games over some cupcakes, I don't know if they get in. Like, it's just if any of those games against these cupcakes that you're scheduling are somewhat close, like it doesn't do you any benefit realistically because you're playing the cupcake schedule and then you played them close. So really, I don't know, the optics of it all doesn't necessarily can pay off, but I guess Cignetti, that's in the DNA. That's what he does.
It's very much the state of where college sports is right now. Like it or not, it's what we unfortunately have to deal with.
Yeah, never daunted, but scheduling cupcakes in week 1, week 2, and week 3, I guess. It's I don't know. I get it.
Well, Joe, thanks for hanging out and filling in for Jack today.
Oh my God, of course, Tyler. I appreciate it. Always love coming in here and hanging out with you, and it's always a blast.
This time next week, we'll be talking about camp starting.
Yeah.
Look forward to it.
We are right on the horizon. Some real football to talk about. Can't wait. Some real takes.
Joe's got to get out of here. We'll talk to our guy Corey Parson of the BetMGM Network coming up next as we run the numbers here on your Friday on the Extra Point on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you on your Friday here on The Game. As we do each and every Friday, it's time to run the numbers with our guy Corey Parson of the Bet MGM Network. Corey, appreciate your time as always. How are we doing today?
What's going on, Tyler? Doing good. Actually sitting outside, enjoying a little bit of this weather before it's unbearable to sit outside. So getting some good time in the morning and looking forward to talking a little shop with you today.
Absolutely. Appreciate it being on y'all's show on the BetMGM Network last week. You and your host, Rob, who I saw is up at ACC Media Days this week, holding down the fort up there. And that kind of leads us into the discussion of this week, which is the intriguing ACC and who's going to come out top dog this year after Clemson was able to ascend back to the throne last year.
Yeah, definitely. Right now, it looks like Clemson is sitting in the power seat with pretty low odds to be the conference champion. I think coming in at just about even money right now. Like, I would always advise people to never bet that type of future at even money or anywhere in that plus 150, plus 200 range. To me, I think you can get better odds at some point during the season just because of the ebbs and flow of the season. But that's where they're sitting right now. They're in the power position up there in the upstate, and we'll see if anybody can come in there and chase them down.
Well, I do think it's interesting because a year ago we were talking about this Clemson team maybe kind of being on the backslide, and now here we are a year later talking about them having one of the best rosters in all of college football, and maybe being primed for a for a run at the national championship. So I think it would shock a lot of people if somebody other than Clemson did win the ACC this year.
Yeah, I think that would be the case as well. But what we're seeing in the win totals is that really it's only a couple of teams that people are really giving a shot to as far as what they're betting. Now, when we spoke earlier in the spring or in the off season about what was going on, obviously these numbers that just came out, and you really just saw some sharp money attacking them. But now as we get closer to kickoff and people are traveling and making their plans and stuff like that, we're starting to see these numbers kind of firm up a little bit. And really it looks like Louisville, SMU, and Miami are the teams that people are looking at to possibly, give Clemson their biggest challenge in the ACC. Right now, Louisville win total is sitting at 8.5 with the over juiced to minus 130. So people think that Louisville is at least a 9-win team. They don't think Miami will get to 10 wins, and they also think SMU is a 9-win team, while Clemson to the top of the conference. People think that they're probably going to be a 10 or 11-win team.
So Miami's an interesting case here. Again, a year ago, they looked like the odds-on favorite to win the ACC and were in a position to do that until they lost to Syracuse at the end of the regular season. Obviously, Cam Ward ends up being the number 1 overall pick. They go out this offseason, really hit the transfer portal hard, bringing in Carson Beck from Georgia, who didn't have the greatest season a year ago, but we've seen the potential of how good he can be in prior seasons at Georgia, and it seems like they're kind of maybe the, sentimental bet to potentially challenge Clemson this year. And again, we don't have divisions anymore, so it's going to be number 1 versus number 2 in the conference. And I think if most people are picking, they're probably looking at a Clemson-Miami ACC championship game come December.
Yep, that's kind of what they're looking at. Miami with the second shortest odds right now to win the conference at plus 380. Also a number that I probably would not buy into either with the Hurricanes at that number. You mentioned the addition of Carson Beck. But the truth of the matter is it's still going to come down like so much things in college football is, how the schedule shakes up and who you have to play and when you have to play them. And when you look kind of down through what Miami has to do this season, kind of to get to that point, there is some pretty marquee matchups. They open up versus Notre Dame in week 1, that big-time showdown. And then after that, they do have the big matchup with Florida on the schedule. People think Florida State will be more competitive this year. They got a big game in October against Louisville, but they get that game in their building. They also have to go to SMU. So they do play the meat of the conference and 2 big-time non-conference games, one being a rival in Florida. But really those matchups against Louisville, SMU, particularly the one at SMU, are going to be key games from them. They don't get Clemson during the regular season. Obviously, they do hope to face off against Clemson at some point this year. If that be the case and Clemson makes it to conference championship game. But the Hurricanes are, we're going to see what they're made of early with that big test versus Notre Dame, that historic old school rivalry.
Of course, the biggest story in the ACC this year, and you certainly saw it with the interest at media days, is what Bill Belichick's going to be able to do in his first year, not only at North Carolina, but in college football coaching in general. They get Gio Lopez from South Alabama as their quarterback, have a lot of guys coming in from the transfer portal, and, Bill Belichick just has a winning reputation given what he did throughout those years with the New England Patriots. But this is a different ballgame, and there's a lot of people that think they could be a playoff caliber team, but a lot of people think that they will crash and burn, and it seems like the odds here kind of have them somewhere right about the middle.
Now, this is one of the most interesting things because, back in the spring when we talked about North Carolina, they were one of the most bet unders. People were coming in heavy on the under at 6.5. But then what we saw was some reverse steam. Despite people coming in on the under, the number rose to 7.5. Now, that 7.5 is still juiced to the under, but it looks like there's starting to be some Tar Heel believers coming into the market. It's been a bumpy start so far, things that you don't really see with Belichick programs. Obviously, the personal situation has taken a lot of interest, but that situation's been going on for a while now, and it's not like it ever affected him when he was the head coach of the New England Patriots. I think we know what Bill Belichick and Mike Lombardi plan on doing. Those guys are organizational builders, and you saw it with the Patriots. Hopefully you'll see it with with North Carolina. Maybe not hopefully, it depends on how you feel about the Tar Heels. But they build organizations, they build structure. They don't go out there and get players. They put teams together. And, a lot of people will come in and say, well, look at the Brady-Belichick era, the way it ended after Brady left. People will start to say, well, okay, well, that was really Tom Brady. But people tend to forget about the Cleveland Browns when Belichick and Lombardi were there. And they only really had one winning season. They made the playoffs and made a little bit of a run. But that Cleveland Brown team that Belichick and Lombardi ran, that team became the Baltimore Ravens. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those pieces changed over and transferred over to the Baltimore Ravens. And we've seen the success that the Baltimore Ravens have had since basically getting to Baltimore.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be an interesting story to follow this upcoming year. I want to add one more thing before we let you go here, Corey, and we talked about some NASCAR-related stuff in recent weeks, but one of the biggest events in the entire year, the Brickyard 400, coming up this weekend, and this is a race where you don't have a lot of surprises, and it's not really shocking to see some of the numbers coming in on guys like Kyle Larson, William Byron, and Chase Elliott as the high favorites going into this weekend's race.
Yeah, big weekend down there at the track, the Brickyard. Give me 1 second, Tyler, to get my notes up and change from ACC football to the Brickyard 400. So Kyle Larson opened up this event as a plus 550 favorite. He's down to plus 500, it's 5-1. Chase Elliott also saw some line movement from 11-1 to 9-1. But definitely when you look at the tickets, it is Kyle Larson, William Bryson, and Chase Elliott that are, racking up the public money. But respectfully, though, the highest handle is Tyler Reddick. Right now at BetMGM, he has almost 50% of the money, followed by Bubba Wallace at 10%, and then Kyle Busch at 7% of the money, not the actual tickets, but the actual money count. So Tyler Reddick is a big liability to the sports book this weekend. I'm not going to sit up here and say, Tyler, that I am a NASCAR expert, but is there any credence to Tyler Reddick having this much handle, and see somebody that can actually hurt the sports book this weekend?
Yeah, he's been wildly inconsistent this year. He drives for Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan, so they have speed, they have the equipment, but his finishes have been all over the place, so you never really know what you're going to get one week to the other. So I can understand. And Bubba Wallace kind of the same way, a teammate to him there. You just never know what you're going to get out of those two guys in terms of what their performance is going to be, so not surprising that they're coming in as liabilities like that.
Yep. Well, there you go, right there. So, big liabilities, but like you said, long odds help that, and the inconsistency as well. So, interesting to see how it all plays out. Give you a little extra action for the weekend, and Tyler, you know, by the time we talk next, we'll start to have NFL training camps kicking off. So, definitely going to be interesting. Injuries should start to come into play, and we really should start to see some movement in the next week or so.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to it. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, Tyler.
He is Corey Parson of the Bet MGM Network because we run the numbers each and every Friday. Coming up next, though, is this a make or break year for James Franklin to finally win a national championship? I think it is, and I'll tell you why coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you on your Friday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you on your Friday here on the game. We'll get into James Franklin and Penn State here in just a moment, but it is time for Who Sprung a Leak, brought to you by our friends over at American Leak Detection. And going to go kind of with a reversal on this one, as the Rockies have been a common appear in the Who Sprung a Leak each and every week. But I want to give them some credit this time, because they finally did something they have not done in a very long time, and that is pitch a shutout. On Wednesday, they picked up a 6-0 victory over the Cardinals. That was their first shutout since May 15th of last year in 2024, ending a streak of 220 consecutive games without shutting out an opponent. That is the third longest streak in Major League Baseball history. So the Rockies not doing a whole lot of things right, so they are perennially going to be involved with teams that usually spring a leak. But this time, I will tip my cap to them for finally at least getting a shutout. They still are 50 games under 500, so things not looking up anytime soon, but at least for Wednesday night, they did do something right then. All right, now we get over to college football. It's been a busy week at Big Ten and ACC Media Days, and one team that I think is garnering perhaps more hype than anyone coming into this year is James Franklin and the Penn State Nittany Lions, team that last year obviously made the semifinal. They had they won the first-round game against SMU, beat Boise in the quarterfinal, and then lost to Notre Dame in a highly competitive game in the quarterfinal, coming up just short of appearing in the national championship. And it seems like if there was ever going to be a year to win the national championship, this would be it for James Franklin and his crew. And the other day at Big Ten Media Days, James Franklin was asked about those national championship expectations being placed on his team.
Yeah, the way I would describe it is this, right? There's a ton of conversations that are happening nationally, right? And we embrace that, we've earned that. Based on what we've been able to do and what we got coming back. There's a lot of people that are excited on a national level talking about us. But the reality is, when it comes to the Lash football building or when it comes to local, these are always the expectations at Penn State. We had what a lot of people would consider a really good season last year. We were a game away from playing for the national championship, and you could actually make the argument a drive away for playing for the national championship. But it didn't feel that way, right? Because the expectations at Penn State are really high. So we embrace that. I came to Penn State understanding that, knowing that. Our players did as well. So I think the conversations that you're talking about nationally are happening, and we appreciate that, but it hasn't really changed close to home, and it hasn't changed internally in our program, because these are always our expectations. And let's also be honest. I mean, it's a great conversation, but who really cares about preseason rankings? They mean nothing. It's a good argument to have, and everybody has fun with it, but the only rankings that matter are the ones that happen at the end of the season, and that's what we're concerned about. And the only way we'll do that is by handling our business today.
So, of course, when you talk about James Franklin, you always have to bring up the point of his abysmal record versus top 10 teams since he's been at Penn State. 4-20 when you go back to that loss against Notre Dame, and I believe that was the Orange Bowl last year, if I'm remembering correctly. And, it doesn't mean that James Franklin's a bad coach, because, again, he's routinely got, Penn State around that 10-ish win mark, and no program benefits more from the playoff expanding than Penn State did this past year. He's just not been able to get over that hump when it comes to beating the really, really good teams, which routinely in the Big Ten, that usually means Ohio State and Michigan. And even, again, Ohio State's had their number pretty much every single year except for 2016 when Penn State did beat them and win the Big Ten championship, but had a couple of other losses that prevented them from being in the playoff, and Ohio State was able to get in anyway. But I say, looking at what Penn State has this year, I think if James Franklin can't win a national championship this year with this team, I don't know if he ever will. And that's not saying that they're going to fall off the face of the earth and suddenly become a 5-6-1 team every single year. I think he'll routinely have good and competitive teams, but it really seems like all the pieces have fallen in place. The stars have aligned this year that if Penn State's going to win a national championship, this is going to be the year to do it. yes, you lose very, very talented players in Abdul Carter and Tyler Warren from both sides of the ball last year, but you have so much great talent returning. Drew Aller, who last season took a significant step forward, still, not the perfect quarterback by any means, but he got better last year, a whole lot better, and was able to get the ball out to his playmakers and allow, that Penn State offense to be successful. You return a two-headed monster in the backfield in Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, who are perhaps one of the, if not the best running back combinations in the entire country. Certainly up for debate there. You return 4 of your starters on the offensive line. They get about half of their defense back from a year ago. Again, you lose Abdul Carter. That's certainly a significant loss, but you do like what they have coming back, and I fully expect them to once again be competitive at the very top of the Big Ten. Schedule works out, I'd say, mostly pretty favorably. The 2 games of note that are certainly going to be challenges, going on the road to Ohio State, as well as taking on Indiana the week after that. But everything else on this schedule, and Oregon a little bit earlier on the season, we'll play Oregon as well, but everything else is manageable. So those are those 3 games that you look at and say, okay, how does Penn State manage these? But if they can go, 2-1, even 1-2 in those games and still end up 10-2, they have the opportunity to be in the college football playoff. But the reason I say that this year more than ever seems like the better opportunity for Penn State, best opportunity for Penn State to win the national championship is partly because of what they have coming back, but also all the situations that so many of the big contenders for the national championship are dealing with, and that's new starting quarterbacks. Let's run through this real quick. The following teams are starting somebody that was not their starter at this time a year ago. Now, some of these guys did come in and have spot starts or come in as the season wore along, but for the most part, we're talking about all these schools breaking in brand new starting quarterbacks. Those schools include Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Georgia, Notre Dame, Alabama. All these schools are breaking in new starting quarterbacks compared to what they had a year ago. And look, some of these guys are going to end up being really, really good. Some of these guys, like an Arch Manning, could end up being as great as he is being touted to be. We don't know that for sure, but that's certainly a possibility. But there's also the chance that some of these guys can end up being just okay to average and not being good enough to help carry their team to the heights of being in the conversation for the national championship. So you have the part of it where Penn State is getting so much production back. You've got a veteran quarterback that's hung around, developed, and continued to get better, but you also have these seeming, rivals in terms of chasing the national championship that are resetting in their own way, particularly at the quarterback spot, that could cause them issues. So again, it seems like all the stars are finally aligning for things to work out for Penn State. And again, James Franklin is a very, very good coach, but for whatever reason, no matter what year it is, he just can't seem to get over that hump of beating teams that have a number 10 or less next to their name when it comes to the rankings. And this year's your chance to prove it. This year's your chance to establish yourself as a top dog kind of guy, or a top dog kind of team in the in not only the Big Ten, but in all of college football. And we'll certainly see if they are able to do that this upcoming year, because they're being looked at as one of the overall favorites to win the national championship. And we'll see if James Franklin can finally break through and do that. James Franklin also this week talked about something interesting in terms of where the Big Ten decided to hold their media days. And I think the gripe that he has is very legitimate, but I also think it highlights just how much the SEC understands where its money's made. And I'll talk about that coming up next as we wrap up hour number 2 of the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you on your Friday here on The Game.
Yeah, the way I would describe it is this, right? There's a ton of conversations that are
Welcome back in, Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you here on your Friday on the Game. Talking about the Big Ten, talking about Penn State. Again, a moment ago, I said that if they can't win a national championship this year, I don't know if they ever will, because it seems like the stars are finally aligning for James Franklin's crew in terms of what they have coming back, as well as everything else going on in college football with teams replacing quarterbacks and all that kind of stuff that seems to potentially play right into their favor. Something else, though, James Franklin talked about this week was the location of Big Ten Media Days. If you're not familiar, Big Ten Media Days was out in Las Vegas. There's no Big Ten teams in the state of Nevada. In fact, the majority of their teams are very, very far away from the state of Nevada and Las Vegas. 4 teams, though, on the West Coast. UCLA, Southern Cal, Oregon, and Washington in relatively close proximity. But the majority of their teams are in the Midwest to really kind of the Northeast when you count in teams like Rutgers and Maryland and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of those teams had to travel very far to get to media days, and there were a lot of reporters and people that cover those respective teams that did not get the opportunity to be out there. And James Franklin discussed his frustration with Big Ten Media Days being out in Las Vegas.
Did not come to this because they couldn't afford to get out here. And the majority of our teams are near Chicago, where this used to always be. The majority of our teams are near Indianapolis, where this used to be. And it creates a different environment. I walk around the lobby, I don't see any signage. I don't see anything for the Big Ten. I don't see people getting autographs. I don't see, it's a different vibe and it's a different feeling. I think that other conference, when they have their meetings, there's essentially a press conference every single day at the end of the meetings. It keeps people talking about that conference at a time of the year and makes them relevant. We're not doing that. We need to be talking about the Big Ten and our programs and the things that we have done, and making it as accessible to everybody as we possibly can, and connecting with the fans. And don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I think Vegas is a special place, and I think they run events as well as anybody. But it's a different feeling. It's a different feeling. And I've been at those other places where people are putting up babies for you to autograph and stuff. It's different. So I think there's still some things that we got to be strategic and smart about that are going to put our conference and our schools in the best position on a national level, in my opinion.
And he's right. When you look at pictures and videos from Big Ten Media Days, it pales in comparisons to what happened last week in Atlanta with the SEC Media Days, where most all teams were in relative close proximity, and you had that presence of not only the local media, but also, radio stations and TV stations and all that kind of stuff that, let's be honest, a lot of them probably couldn't afford to go out to Las Vegas to cover Big Ten Media Days. And this is where I want to give the SEC a lot of credit. And we talked about this last week with, Greg Sankey being asked the question about international games and him not really showing too much interest in that. Same thing with something like this. As minuscule as it may seem, I think it underscores the fact that the SEC knows where its money's made. The SEC knows where its bread is buttered. Could the SEC probably take media days out to Las Vegas? Could they take it out to Hollywood, California? Sure they could. I'm sure there'd be a lot of interest there to do that. But they understand the best and most passion of the SEC exists right in the backyard of your own schools. Atlanta, very central location where the conference championship game is being played, makes a lot of sense. So is Nashville and Birmingham. Dallas, even then, is not all that far away for a lot of teams in the SEC to get out to, like they went to last year. So the SEC understands the value of staying home in a lot of senses. Again, the international games is all 4 power leagues have played games outside the country in the past handful of years. Well, the thing with that is you have to give up home games to do that. And I don't see the SEC ever willingly saying, hey, LSU, Alabama, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, whatever it may be, we need you to give up a home game so you can go play overseas in Ireland or England or France or something along those lines. I don't see them ever doing that because they understand the best passion and the most money, more likely than not, is coming from playing games right in your own backyard where these, communities embrace these teams. That same kind of, sentiment is not felt internationally as much as I'm sure there are people across the pond that would love to see the SEC product up close and personal, up close in person. That doesn't benefit the SEC at the end of the day. And I think that's something the league does really well, that unfortunately I think a league like the Big Ten can be a little bit short-sighted with that for something as simple as holding their media days in a place where you can't get a lot of your local media out there to cover it. Like James Franklin said, at SEC Media Days, everybody's there. They're talking about your team. They're talking about all the teams. They're talking about the conference, talking about the commissioner, all these kind of things that generate positive buzz for your conference when you have everybody possible on location there. That's not quite the case when you talk about something like Big Ten Media Days this year where it looked like a ghost town there. You look at some of the pictures, especially on the last day, there's nobody there. Nobody, the local media there to cover the team. The national media, yeah, ESPN and Big Ten and all the networks and all those are out there covering it, obviously. But the people that really tell the stories of the team, not quite on location there at the volume that you need or the volume that you have, when it was in places like Chicago or Indianapolis in years past that he alluded to. So I feel like that's a little bit of a short sight by the Big Ten. That's something that maybe they didn't think about in terms of the effect of moving media days out there, but something that nonetheless I think again shows you that the SEC understands where its bread is buttered, and I don't see them straying off that course certainly anytime soon. So just some observations there from the Big Ten Media Days being out in Las Vegas. That'll do it for hour number 2 of the Extra Point. Coming up next is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Can Wes Mitchell answer today's trivia question with 37 days to kickoff? Find out next here on The Game. 11 o'clock on your Friday morning. Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler and Wes along with you here on the game as Chris is out enjoying parts unknown. We'll see him sometime next week. We got a lot to dive into today. Of course, our trivia question coming up here in just a moment. But Wes, you've informed me you saw something interesting on the road this morning.
Well, I just witnessed an all-time road rage crash out. Luckily, did not directly involve me.
Okay.
And I still don't actually know which person it was. But, when the light turns green, maybe somebody doesn't move, maybe wait a split second, maybe give them a little courtesy beep of the horn.
Sure.
So I'm in front of Dreer, which, for those who go through that intersection, Devine and Millwood split off, and there's always first a right-hand turn green at that light. Now, if you're in the far right one, everybody in that lane can go.
Yep.
If you're in the middle lane, you technically can go right, but that lane goes right or straight.
Okay.
So, and the far left lane goes straight only.
Yeah.
Well, the light turns right-hand green, and my man or woman, again, I couldn't tell which car it's coming from, doesn't give the courtesy beep. They laid on their, they put their head down on their horn, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And I'm looking, everybody in the right-hand lane is going like they're supposed to. Then I'm like, okay, the car in front of y'all is going straight.
Sure.
They can't go yet.
Yeah.
But that did not seem to factor in. This person held down their horn for literally the entire 15 seconds before the full light turned green. And the people around me, too, were just looking around like, where is this? What is going on? All-time Friday crash out.
Yeah.
Then I got yelled at for
okay.
I mean, it's been a strange drive getting here.
Yeah, what happened?
I did throw my flashers on because I was grabbing a coffee real quick.
Sure.
Already mobile ordered it, by the way.
All right.
And I've got a spot it's kind of a parking spot. It's kind of not. I run in for literally 30 seconds, grab my coffee, and somebody comes out. Are you going to be there for long? And they were asking basically in a facetious way, like,
sure.
Why are you parking there? I was like, well, I'm technically not blocking anything. So, but thanks for your concern.
Wow, what a warning.
I know. Let's see what the third thing, they say things come in threes.
Things come in three,
so.
yeah. Like the celebrity deaths. Yeah, you were the one that informed me of Hulk Hogan passing away yesterday because I hadn't been checking social media in the last couple segments yesterday. And you're like, hey, did you hear about Hulk Hogan? I'm like, no. And you're like, he died. I'm like, oh, my God. Wow. What a week.
Yeah, they do seem to come in threes, I feel like. So
insane. Well, hopefully your day gets going better than what happened.
I'm great, though. All these other people are crashing out. It's Friday. I'm just strolling along.
You observed the road rage, and then you were, I don't know, I think you were the target of somebody's frustration about something else.
Yes.
Where I feel like they saw that situation like, all right, I can get angry at somebody for 5 seconds.
Let's get that guy. Yeah.
So you were the poor victim of that, unfortunately.
It's all good. I'm
other
happy.
Than that,
I'm smiling.
we're good and rolling.
Yes.
I don't think Chris is joining us today. So the trivia question falls solely on you today. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, give me my topic this time.
Well, it's 37 days to kick off. I think we all know what 37 would apply to. Do you know?
I mean, is this a player?
Yeah, it's player. Number 37.
Oh, Wadiak?
Yeah, Wadiak.
Okay.
I'm assuming you didn't prepare for Steve Wadiak.
I mean, I prepared just in a sense of if he asked about a player, that's who it would be about.
Okay.
And his number is retired, so he is like
haven't had a 37 in a very long time.
Yeah, he's a known commodity.
Yeah, regarded
as a player.
One of the best running backs in Gamecock history. So the question today is, where does he rank on the all-time rushing yards list for South Carolina? He's in the top 10.
He is in the top 10.
Yep.
Oh, man. Tyler. Obviously, Georgia's one. By the way, as I stall, did you know that he was the first player to have his jersey number retired?
That's believable. It was
At South
back in the
Carolina.
50s.
Yeah.
Early 50s, when his career ended. That's believable. There's only been a handful retired. Funny that 37 and 38 back-to-back are 2 retired numbers.
Yeah, I'm going to say, again, complete guess. I'm going to say he's 4th.
Boom, you nailed it. 4th on the list. 2,878 yards career total for Steve Wadiak in 4 years at South Carolina.
Do you have the full list in front of you?
I do.
Who's 2, 3, and 5?
Do you want to attempt 2, 3, and 5?
No. I can't. We looked these up. Hold on. I'm gonna somewhat cheat, but I'm not gonna completely cheat because we did. So our guy Kevin Miller, we did top 10. Not just by the numbers. We had to do a top 10 list on Gamecock Central.
I have that list, which we'll bring up here in a second.
So I feel like I just need a reminder of some of the names, and I'll be.
All right. How about this? I will give you the other 8 names in the top 10, and you tell me which ones you think occupy 2, 3, and 5. How about that? So this is not in any particular order. So the other names in the top 10 include Marcus Lattimore, Thomas Dendy, Johnny Wright, Mike Davis, Kevin Long, Jalen Hodgkin, Harold Green, and Brandon Bennett.
I feel like Brandon Bennett and Harold Green are 2 and 3 in some order.
Okay.
I'm gonna say Bennett 2, Green 3.
Okay. Would be 5.
Wadiak is 4. Is Dindy 5?
Dindy is 5. Congratulations. You've earned the half bonus point.
So they were all right?
Yeah, they were all right. You have George Rogers, Brandon Bennett, Harold Green, Steve Wadiak, and Thomas Dindy as your top 5.
So in my top 10 in terms of top 10 all-time Gamecocks at the running back position, George is 1, obviously.
Sure.
But had Marcus 2, even though Marcus Lattimore obviously didn't have the numbers because of the injuries.
Yeah, if he doesn't get injured, God, how many times did he get hurt? What he could have been here, not only here, but at the next level, if he was able to stay healthy, is always kind of one of those great what-ifs of Gamecock football.
And if you look up the number just of touchdowns that Marcus scored in his career, even with a shortened career, insane numbers. So had Marcus 2, Bennett 3, Green 4, Mike Davis 5. There is obviously some recency bias that creeps in just because, we didn't see these other guys. And so then do you even factor in hey, well, could that guy have even rushed for half that in this era? But no, you kind of have to, I feel like, be like, well, he's playing in his era.
Respect
for a reason.
the time frame that they were in.
Yes. Wadiak, who died at 26.
Right after getting drafted.
Yeah, in a car wreck, which our younger Gamecock fans maybe don't know the lore there. Thomas Dendy, Johnny Wright, Deuce Staley, who wouldn't have had the biggest career numbers, was a local guy but went JUCO, then came to South Carolina. And then I had Jalen Hodgkin just because of the numbers. I couldn't really tell you much about him, but that was my top 10.
Well, Marcus Lattimore is the all-time leader in terms of rushing touchdowns, despite only playing 3 seasons, despite having all the injuries.
Upper 30s?
Yeah, 38.
Yeah.
George Rogers next. George Rogers and Harold Green tied for second with 31. But again, that shows you how good Marcus Lattimore was, that despite not having a complete career at Carolina, still has the record for rushing touchdowns.
And that dude had a nose for the end zone, too. When the end zone was when he was closing in on the end zone, he was going to find a way to get that extra yard, that extra half yard. They always talked about guys who run behind their pads, and he was like the perfect example of that. And, man, obviously everybody on that list was special in their own way, but George clearly had the yardage number that will probably never be touched, I don't think, 5,204 yards. But, I mean, Marcus had some special numbers in his own right.
Marcus also top 5 on the list of single-season game performances, 246 yards against Navy in 2011. Wadiak won above him with 256 against Clemson back in 1950.
Yeah, Wadiak was apparently pretty special in his own right back then. 5'9", 185, which obviously, man, you're a scat back at this age of football.
Sure.
But back then, I mean, you're actually maybe, I don't want to say one of the bigger backs, but you're probably kind of a big back at that, because the offensive linemen were like,
it's
210.
It's funny to look back now on, like, even as recently as like the 1980s, when you see like the starting offensive lineman for like a national championship team would be like 240.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a night and day difference. And again, we have more, understanding of exercise science and nutrition and all that kind of stuff to make these guys into the monsters that they are. But yeah, different times back then for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. So we'll be able to inform Chris when he comes back, if he ever comes back, that I got a point and a half today.
Yes, he is down. You're leading 15 to 13 and a half now.
Okay.
So you've opened up your lead a little bit. Again, he's going somewhere. I don't know when he's coming back. Birdies with Beamer coming up on Monday, so I don't know if he's going to be out at that.
We are going to be at that.
You guys will be out there. I'll be back here, but you guys will be on location there for that.
No,
but,
you're coming out there.
Well,
we need you out there.
Talk to Terry about that.
Okay.
We'll see if we can
I'll
work
text
that
him.
out. But yeah, looking forward to that. But yeah, today, 37 days away from kickoff, Steve Wadiak, 37, the retired number for South Carolina. By the way, I think you can still find it on our website. If you can go back through the archives of the old Tommy Moody show that we used to have on here, one of his, I feel like, best episodes that I ever heard was talking about Steve Wadiak, the story behind him, and obviously what he meant to South Carolina program. And I remember hearing that years and years ago when the show was still going on, and a really, really good story, one that obviously meant a lot to Tommy being the historian that he was for South Carolina football.
Yeah, man. I mean, we talk about it fairly often, what Gamecock Nation lost with Tommy's loss. And that guy was a literal encyclopedia of Gamecock knowledge. So I'm sure he would have had some awesome insight for us on some of these numbers that we're doing as part of the countdown.
He probably could answer most of these trivia questions correctly.
Dude, that would have been, he would have hammered us. But I mean, here's the thing, and I don't know how if people like sports history. Like I have to I have to remind myself, like, there are Gamecock fans that read our stuff, listen to our stuff now, that like didn't watch the early Spurrier era.
Sure.
Sure. And like there's a difference between hearing about someone and actually seeing them with your own eyes. But those people that could make you feel like you were there by describing it so well are special, and that's certainly something Tommy could do.
Definitely miss our friend Tommy Moody all the time. We'll get into what's been going on at ACC Media days, including the beef between who's the real Death Valley. Coming up next, it is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs on your Friday on the Game.
All right, guys, football season right around the corner. You still got time, though. 37 days till kickoff here locally. Let's upgrade the man cave, man. Set it up now. You can have it done before kickoff. Do it with our friends at Integrated Media. Head on over to integratedmediainc.com or call them today. Go ahead and set something up. 803-948-8327. Like I said, like we always tell you, if you want to upgrade the TV, if you want to hang the TV, or maybe you want to go all in on that man cave or home theater system, they can take that dream and turn it into a reality for you. For me, it was more about the internet side of things. I know we do a lot of streaming, stream from home from your job, office space, a lot of people working from home. Let them come out and make sure that your Ethernet is run throughout the house so that you have hardwired internet. Or, again, football season on the way. Let's upgrade that man cave. Let's upgrade the TV in the living room and get it ready for college football. IntegratedMediaInc.com or 803-948-8327.
People talk about, well, what's your process? It is to build those traits in our players so they can deliver when their best is needed. You want attention to detail on 4th and goal. You want great habits when they're needed, when you're on the road and you're playing in Death Valley Junior, not the Death Valley. That's what you need. You need those traits on a day-to-day basis.
I didn't think about it. My focus is just on getting ready to play the game. None of the rest of it.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler and West with you on your Friday. We're a month away from the season, but the beef is already starting to heat up. Who's the real Death Valley? That's the question being asked between LSU and Clemson, as you heard. Both Brian Kelly and Dabo Swinney there giving their takes this week. I'm not sure what the Brian Kelly thing was from. It almost sounded like some kind of rally as he's pounding on the desk and getting louder and louder. But he's trying to drive the point home that the real Death Valley exists in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, not in Clemson, South Carolina.
Yeah, you got to love it. And, I think that was at probably something like a Gamecock Club meeting for South Carolina. Sounded like it was one of those things where you're trying to get the fans fired up. You're going to say, you're going to needle your rivals, your opponents, stuff like that. I think you could tell even Dabo was kind of laughing about it a little bit. I mean, I don't think it really matters a whole lot, but it does add a little bit of intrigue to this matchup. Obviously, two teams that share a mascot, two teams that share a nickname for their home stadium. And, it's cool. It's fun. Did you see, by the way, the story of Dabo texting Brian Kelly about his being at his wife's shop?
No, I did not.
So funny enough, we were actually, when I was out of town last week, the week before, whenever that was, when I was out of town, we were in 30A down near the Gulf, right?
Yeah.
And my wife goes, "Hey, I want to go in this shop. It's Brian Kelly's wife owns it."
Okay.
And so we go in there. Dabo apparently had the same experience. The people he's with or his wife or whoever says, Brian Kelly's wife owns this little shop. So he's going in there checking it out, blah, blah, blah. He goes out in the back, and sure enough, I was just there. There's this little, stage back there. There's a little, bar back there. It's like a hangout area. And he goes back there, and there's signs saying, Brian Kelly set to perform here. and so Dabo's sitting there, as he tells it, taking pictures of it, doing selfies with it, texting them to Brian Kelly. And then at some point along the way, Dabo says something to the rest of the people that he's with, and they're like, what are you talking about? And Dabo's like, yeah, we opened the season against them. And the other person is like, wait, what are you talking about? You're like, Brian Kelly, the football coach.
Yeah.
They're like, no, this is Brian Kelly that used to be a singer for Florida Georgia Line. So
wow.
Yes, there's multiple Brian Kellys in the world.
Think about that. That's funny.
But Dabo legitimately was blowing him up with texts, thinking that he was at his wife's store and that the Brian Kelly was performing.
But it was his wife's store.
No,
it wasn't.
It was Brian Kelly from Florida Georgia Line's wife's store.
All right, okay, that makes sense. I'm like, wait a minute. So the other Brian Kelly was going to the other Brian Kelly's wife's store? No, I get it. Okay.
All of it was Florida Georgia Line.
I gotcha. Okay.
Brian Kelly.
That is really funny, and I could definitely see Dabo doing that, not being aware of the coincidence there.
Yeah, it was actually.
That is really funny.
It was actually very funny. Hearing, Dabo can rub Carolina fans the wrong way, but it was legitimately hilarious in my opinion.
He can be a bit of a goofball at times. We certainly have our fun with him. One thing that I think is interesting out of ACC Media Days this week, and I was talking about this with Scott Hamilton, the Post and Courier, earlier on this week, that for the first time in a couple years, this has kind of been a quietish media days. There's not been controversy or somebody that's trying to sue the league or challenge the grant of rights. That wasn't until yesterday when this news story comes out about UNC exploring leaving the ACC and having their eyes set on the SEC. Now, the funny thing about this is this is very one-sided, right? Where it's okay, yeah, UNC wants to leave the ACC, but that doesn't mean the SEC is sitting there with their arms wide open right now. It's very much a whole lot of nothing at this point in time. That could be something later down the line, but to go back, it seemed like they were going to get through the whole week without any controversy, and then this pops up on the last day when Bill Belichick's speaking and all that kind of stuff, that the ACC just can't seem to avoid the negative headlines for whatever reason.
Yeah, and this originally was reported by Inside Carolina, which, for those who don't know, is like, man, the premier website for UNC sports, and actually probably one of the premier fan sites in the country. Like, they're probably a top 5 in terms of number of people that visit that site on a daily basis. So they are pretty well sourced up. Timing on this is interesting. It also makes me wonder, all right, did UNC not want this out, or did they want this out? Depending on who is telling him this information, why would they want this out right now? Is it sort of, let's get this out there and see what some reactions are? Let's use it for, to gain leverage? I don't know. But Clemson was mentioned along the way as well as a potential for the SEC. But again, all this is coming from the UNC side of things. So I could see the SEC, though, having interest in sliding into the state of North Carolina.
Well, the significant thing about this is that the exit fee for the ACC drops from $93 million down to $75 million in 2030, so several years away. And again, Greg Sankey said many times the SEC is not looking to expand right away once again, but 4 to 5 years down the road, that could certainly be a possibility. And we've talked about this before. When it comes to the SEC, it's all about getting into new markets, getting into new places, and bringing in more television revenue. And places like North Carolina or the state of Virginia are kind of the states that are circled as the next opportunity for the SEC or the Big Ten potentially to bring in new members whenever they do decide to do that.
Well, and I think, and this is not new, I've said this before, but I think it's kind of like, you ever look at that chart and realize how few now major corporations just own everything else in business?
Right.
It kind of feels, especially, the SEC was not expanding at all until, boom, one day the Oklahoma and Texas deals were just done.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was like, we're not adding, we're not, we'll look into things if they come up. Then it's like, boom, this is happening. So this could be similar. Like it could be something that's talked about, but then ultimately comes out of nowhere. And I just wouldn't be surprised. Like, it feels like the SEC and the Big Ten are just gobbling up as many schools as they can. So ultimately, I do think the super conference idea has some merit. And ironically, it may be that just those two conferences eat up everything, and then we end up splitting up into divisions again.
Yep.
And we have basically mini M-I-N-I, not M-A-N-Y, mini conferences or divisions within the mega conferences, and then you kind of reward division titles within the framework of. So it's like the SEC is running things, but then there are little splits and divisions among them all.
It's like the NFL. You have an AFC and NFC, and you have 4 individual divisions within it comprised of 4 teams. It'd be something like that where at that point, okay, do you just take the division winners and have wild cards for the college ball playoff? And we're not talking about committee? I don't know, but that seems to be the path we're on, whether you're getting to 20 or 24 for each conference, whatever it may be. And again, North Carolina does seem like one of those viable candidates for both conferences to possibly, take in the next handful of years if they do decide to expand more.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're headed that way eventually. I thought maybe expansion had a limit. I thought we might already at one point be close to that.
Yeah.
I don't think we are anymore. Like, the fact that they just gobbled up Oklahoma and Texas like it was nothing tells me this is far from being over. Though I do think your average college football fan is tired of hearing about expansion. Like, we want some semblance of continuity for at least a little while.
Yeah, well, doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. We'll see what becomes of this story out of Inside Carolina with the Tar Heels and potentially maybe joining the SEC one day down the line. RotoWire put out their list of all SEC teams for this quarter century. Did Gamecocks make the list? We'll discuss that coming up next. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Friday on the Game.
All right, guys, we told you earlier this week, come out, see us, Orangeburg Firehouse Subs, next Tuesday, 9 a.m. to noon. We're going to be on location, checking out the awesome location there in Orangeburg. If you're in the area, come out, say what's up, see us, and get a great sub from our friends at Firehouse Subs. Best way to do it right now, if you're already hungry, get that Friday lunch rolling, firehousesubs.com, or do what we do. Get the Firehouse Subs app. Hopefully you already have. Create an account. Get points every single time you order. Then trade in those points for free, awesome food in the future. Tell you what, man, the brisket add bacon, still number one for me. Even with the new subs that come out, they're great. But brisket add bacon, still top of the list for me. Try one today. Promise you you're going to love it from Firehouse Subs. firehousesubs.com, and the Firehouse Subs app.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler and Wes along with you here on your Friday on the game. RotoWire.com the other day put out their top SEC football stars list of this quarter century. So since the year 2000, A lot of names on this list, but we'll start off locally here, and surprise of absolutely no one, you do have Jadeveon Clowney making the list at defensive end, though he is the only Gamecock that is represented on this list.
Yeah, no surprise for JD. Little surprise maybe that nobody else made it, but JD is like the just obvious no-brainer. Like,
who are your other possible candidates that you think could have made this list?
I mean, as always with these lists, it comes down to what is your criteria.
Sure.
Did they give one? Do you know? Or
No.
it's just best?
It's just, RotoWire.com's put together their SEC quarter-century team, consisting of 11 starters. They don't give any specific criteria, but I think it's just overall thoughts on who are perceived to be the best players at their respective spots since the year 2000.
Like, I mean, if we're just talking about best player, like we talk about Lattimore, to me is on there. Now, statistically, he may not match up with some of the other guys that are on the list, and I'd have to go through it as well and compare. But just on the surface, I mean, Lattimore at his height when he was healthy was just a different animal, man. I think you could make some arguments for Alshon as well. Now, some of that also would depend on how the numbers matched up. But man, Alshon's numbers were insane.
Mm-hmm.
So those would be the guys that just, off the top of my head, would have a case. I'm not necessarily arguing they had to be on it.
I think it's interesting, when we talk about running back specifically here, they went with Darren McFadden. Now, Darren McFadden, I would say, like a Derrick Henry had a better individual year than he did in his final year, but like McFadden over the course of the 3 seasons that he was at Arkansas was obviously an absolute monster there, going over 1,000 yards all 3 seasons, 41 total touchdowns, and that Arkansas team in 2007, a lot of fun to watch with him. They beat LSU in the last week of the regular season, that crazy overtime game. But when you talk about all the great running backs in the SEC, I don't know if everybody would have come to Darren McFadden as the best since the year 2000.
Well, and man, to be fair to them on this thing, like,
there's a lot of options,
and they didn't really take the easy route and just like we're gonna list 3 of them. Like they tried to really just narrow it down and hey, here's the team. I mean, dude, McFadden did rush for almost 4,600 yards.
Yep.
In his time in the SEC. I mean, I think South Carolina fans would actually probably agree with McFadden being on this list because he had an all-time game against the Carolina defense.
Doesn't it always work out that way?
Yeah, in 2008, 2009, something like that. And so, well, no, it couldn't have been 2008.
Last year was 2007.
Would have been 2006 or 7. But who would you have? One of your Georgia boys?
No, I wouldn't. There have been plenty of great ones. I probably would have gone with Derrick Henry just for how dominant that Heisman season was. Again, the overall career numbers aren't the same as Darren McFadden because, again, he was just in a running back room full of a lot of great talent until he finally got his opportunity to shine there. But, I mean, it's kind of splitting hairs here, right? You're talking like 1A, 1B. Obviously, Mark Ingram won a Heisman Trophy with Alabama as well.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of really, really, really good running backs in the SEC in the past 25 years. I mean, I'm saying Darren McFadden is a bad choice. I don't know if he's the first one that comes to people's minds, though, when you talk about this.
Yeah, I didn't realize how many yards your boy Nick Chubb had.
Chubb had Chubb had a pretty phenomenal career, and again, his was stifled by injury in 2015 as well, where he missed basically half the year.
Do you know how many career yards he had?
Not off the top of my head. It's a lot.
4,769.
Yep. That was good.
So that's more than Darren McFadden.
And that's splitting carries with Sony Michel that entire time, too.
Yeah.
I think if Gurley would have played the entire 3 years that he was at Georgia, because 2012 was his freshman year, played the entire year, was banged up in 13, missed half of 14 with the suspension, then came back and tore his ACL against Auburn in his returning game. If he played 3 full years, I wonder what his numbers could have been, because from a, genetic standpoint, he was a freak. He was watching him run in person was awe-inspiring.
Yeah, for sure, man. I tell you what, I've got a list now. This is just all-time career SEC rushers, and I mean, I really can't go against the McFadden choice, but the number of directions you could have gone with this is, I mean, I'm seeing guys on this list that I've had completely forgotten about, but Ralph Webb for Vandy rushed for over 4,000 yards in his career. I think you could make a case for Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, Leonard Fournette also really good.
Fournette, a freak. Cadillac Williams at Auburn. That was that was early in the quarter century.
04-ish around then.
Yeah, 01 to 04. Let's see. Who else we got? Derrick Henry, like you said, he rushed for about 3,600 yards. Gurley, 3,300. Mark Ingram, 3,200. I mean, dude, there have been some absolute studs during that stretch.
Yeah, it's a hard choice to make. And again, when you're limited to just one, like you're crafting a starting 11 here. Again, Derek McFadden, a solid, solid pick there. But again, I don't know if that comes to mind for a lot of people as your number one. There's some other spots on this list I want to get into as well. And with that, as we wrap up the show, coming up next, it is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler and Wes on your Friday on the Game.
Our friends over at Game Day Men's Health can help you as a man reclaim your vitality by optimizing hormone levels. They specialize in TRT, or testosterone replacement therapy, which will help boost your energy and strength. And they're a lot different than other clinics that do similar things. They have in-house labs that can deliver your results in just 15 minutes. They're conveniently located in Northeast Columbia near I-77 and Two Notch Road. Comfortable man cave style clinics with TVs and refreshments while you wait. Also great, they don't use any long-term contracts. Flexible plans tailored to your needs. TRT tests available to check your levels with absolutely no obligation, and then ongoing monitoring, committed to your success with expert guidance. You can get started by going to GameDayMen'sHealth.com/North-Columbia. Again, located just off I-77, or give them a call, 803-265-3161.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler and Wes wrapping up your Friday here on the game. Taking a look at RotoWire's list of the best SEC football players since the year 2000. Their quarter-century team, as mentioned, Jadeveon Clowney, the only Gamecock to make the list. And we debated the running back spot with Darren McFadden getting it a moment ago. And there's also only one quarterback on this list. And you know, the SEC has had so many great quarterbacks just in the past 25 years. But, again, I don't think this is a surprise at all. Tim Tebow comes in at number one for his career at Florida. Obviously, part two national championship teams, won the Heisman Trophy. And I hadn't looked at Tim Tebow's college numbers in a while, but it's unreal, the statistics he put up in those 4 years. 3 of those as a starter at Florida.
And I can tell you, Gamecock fans will remember him, 7 touchdowns?
Yeah, I think so.
In a game at Willie B. One of his all-time nights. And so, yeah, I get it. I think you could have made, several guys you could make a case for. Make a case for Cam Newton.
Are we looking at an entire career or just one season?
But again, that's when we're talking about what's your criteria. Is it just the best player?
Again, I contend that Cam Newton is the greatest single-season college football player of all time. Burrow, monster year in 2019.
As I say, Joe Burrow.
Yeah, a ton of Tua put up some crazy stats. You just look at individual years and a lot of candidates, but doing it over a 4-year period, like Tebow, it's hard to argue with.
To me, that is definitely what put Tebow over the. Like if you were just saying, hey, all these guys are in the mix, the fact that Tebow did it for so long and was just really the face of college football. I mean, you talked about earlier how sort of quiet media days was.
Mm-hmm.
Experiencing Tim Tebow going to SEC media days back in the day was, insane. Like and the stuff. I don't really go into it, but the stuff about his personal life and
sure.
It became this big question going into SEC media days.
He was asked about it like every year, right?
Yeah. Versus Cam never really had that build up because it was
he's just a JUCO guy.
It was this guy's going to be their starter. He was great at JUCO. He was a former highly recruited guy, and I'm sure Auburn behind closed doors probably had a pretty good idea. Hey, sure. we got a dude, but you didn't really know until he just took off like that. Now that was kind of fun.
Yeah,
seeing it play out in real time, where he outplayed every single expectation. Like even if you were like, this guy's going to be all SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody goes in and puts the expectation on a guy of, hey, have the best season in SEC history. But Tebow, he had to play with the spotlight for his entire career and obviously just dealt with it.
And it's crazy, too. And Tebow he was a 5-star coming out of high school. But as we learned when he got to the NFL, Tebow is not the most well-rounded quarterback in the world, but Urban Meyer perfectly, and Dan Mullen too, the offensive coordinator, perfectly fit that offense around his skill set to where if he goes to an Alabama, if he goes to another school, I don't know if he sees he could still be successful and, maybe lead a team to a national championship, but I don't know if he's that same level of player. I think being at Florida was the perfect combination for his play style and what they were asking out of him.
Yeah, it was definitely a match, and those guys happened to be at Florida when Tebow happened to be
around him.
Yeah, that sometimes things just work out perfectly, and that worked out perfectly for them, not for the rest of the SEC. Dude, I can just remember teams having to deal with him, and then some of the studs around him on offense, and dealing with a Percy Harvin and guys like that. Crazy.
Yeah, Aaron Hernandez, all the talent they had on defense. Yeah, you didn't want to see those Florida teams on the schedule. Georgia got him in 2007 for the Gator Chomp game, and they made him pay for it that next year. They mauled them in 2008 and 2009. So I think we all have shared experiences of just getting trounced by what was the best version of Florida we've ever seen.
Well, and Tebow, what year would it have been? His sophomore year, which actually they did not.
That's when he won the Heisman.
Yeah, they did not win the title that year. But, I mean, he threw for 32 touchdowns.
Yep.
6 picks, rushed for nearly 900 yards and 23 touchdowns. I mean, that season itself, I think probably gets glossed over a little bit just by how massive his career numbers were. But, I mean, at the time, not only did he have one of the best careers, but at the time, that was definitely one of the best single seasons I think we had ever seen from a quarterback, especially a guy that just took a beating, man. Like, yeah, and not necessarily because of his offensive line, but he was taking a beating by design. Like, they would, he would take off a lot of times, but they would run the football short yardage and just say, hey, the world knows he's going to have the ball. Stop it.
Yeah, he'd run over people routinely at the goal line, short yard situations. I mean, going back, he's a fun guy to watch. Obviously, when you're on the other side of it and it's your team that he's running all over, it's not fun. But I think most of us can have a appreciation now for how great of player, and it's very rare that you have a player that's that special in college that doesn't have a great NFL career because their skill set doesn't really translate over outside of the miracle touchdown in the AFC playoff game. But yeah, we'll never see a Tebow type of quarterback. I don't know if ever again, with how much offenses have changed and all that kind of stuff, and what it requires to be successful in today's college football.
Well, and I think we may see a guy that has his skill set, but we see a guy who has the perfect combination of all those things, but is not deemed a superstar level NFL guy, which leads to them staying in college. Most of the guys these days, it is what it is. Like if you tell me, hey, I'm going to be a top 10 pick, like
sure,
you're getting out as quickly as you can, right? You're not going to be able to rack up, in his first year in Gainesville, he was used more just like that short yardage guy, but he was able to tack on a couple early touchdowns and first downs early on in his career.
He was so good. People forgot Chris Leak was the starting quarterback of that first Urban Meyer National Championship team because Tebow was such a big deal and garnered so many headlines, and obviously ended up having a more successful career after the fact. But yeah, he was a role player on that first team.
Yeah, and I dare say South Carolina should have kept Tebow from having his first national title because Gamecock fans will remember South Carolina played probably one of their best games of the year, 2006, in the Swamp, driving to score the winning touchdown late in the season, and it gets blocked by a guy who should have been suspended for the game.
That's the story of the Florida Gators back then, Swamp Kings. That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Up next, halftime show with myself once again. Optimistic takes on South Carolina's football season. That's next here on The Game.